The anime starts with a guy named Uera, who works at a travel agency. He's an introvert living alone with his cat. While his life isn't particularly exciting, he feels genuinely happy whenever he spends time with his cat. At work, Uera notices his colleague, Huji, frequently staring at him, which leaves him confused. Since she has been there a year longer than him, he wonders if she might be upset with him for some reason. However, Uera had no idea that Huji just wanted to talk to him. Like him, she's also an introvert and is often misunderstood by others, who assume she's angry because she tends to stare at people without realizing it. Huji feels it's not worth the effort to explain herself. Even though her life is like this, Huji doesn't mind it much at all. By the time she gets home, her stress disappears as she finds joy and relaxation in studying various maps. Uera and Huji are both content with their lives. However, one day, Kekkon, the branch manager, calls a meeting to announce that the company plans to open a branch in Alaska next year. They need to send someone from their office to manage it. Since Alaska is so far away and would mean being separated from family, the company will select someone who is unmarried. Kekkon then asks if anyone would volunteer, but naturally, no one is eager to go, given how distant it is. Uera raised his hand and told Kekkon that he couldn't go, no matter what, because he has a cat to take care of. However, Kekkon responded that this wasn't a valid reason. Later, his co-workers shared their thoughts on the situation, explaining that while traveling to Alaska might be exciting, living there was a different story. Based on what they knew, it would likely take at least 3 or 4 years of working there before returning. One of the co-workers jokingly suggested to another that they should just get married, since the company prefers someone who is single. Uera overheard this and thought that even if he wanted to, he couldn't, since he didn't have any female friends. As he was thinking, Huji kept staring at him without saying a word. Huji also didn't want to go to Alaska. Not only was it far away, but she had also heard that the mosquitoes there were like monsters. To her, it was a matter of life and death. The next day, after taking his cat to the vet, Uera and Huji unexpectedly meet, despite never having spoken before. Uera suddenly gathers up his courage, thanks Huji for all her help, and informs her that he plans to quit his job the next day. For him, his cat means everything, and he simply cannot abandon it. Huji asks Uera if there's anyone who could look after his cat, like a girlfriend or a family member, but he quickly denies it. As he's about to leave, Huji stops him and suggests they get married since she doesn't want to go to Alaska either. Uera thinks it's a wild idea, but after considering it for a moment, he agrees. Huji is confident her plan will work. Since neither of them stands out much at work, she doubts anyone will pay too much attention if they announce they're getting married. Her plan is to act as if they're married for a few months, let the situation settle down, and then quietly let things fade, pretending it never happened. Huji assures Uera that since it was her idea, he can leave everything to her, and he doesn't need to do a thing. The next day, Huji informs Kekkon about they're married. Instead of being suspicious, Kekkon is overjoyed to hear the news. Afterward, Huji and Uera continue working as usual, but when their eyes meet, they can't help but blushing. Later that day, Kekkon calls Uera, asking him to bring a document to their usual meeting place and to bring Huji along. Little did they know, when they arrive, they are surprised to find it's actually a celebration, a surprise party congratulating them on their engagement. Uera starts to worry, fearing they might get exposed if people start asking too many questions. Huji then comes up with an idea. She grabs 2 bottles of wine and heads to a room alone, only to return later, visibly drunk. Meanwhile, Uera finds himself surrounded by co-workers bombarding him with questions. Wanting to help him, Huji grabs a microphone and starts singing. However, her singing isn't great, and the atmosphere becomes awkward. Despite feeling embarrassed, she continues singing, determined to distract everyone. As he watches her, Uera feels a deep sense of admiration, thinking her actions are truly heroic. On the way home, Huji swears she'll never sing again. Suddenly, she trips and falls into Uera's arms. Embarrassed, she quickly apologizes and rushes off. As he watches her leave, Uera starts to regret and wonders why he didn't get up and join her to sing a duet back then. He thinks he's pathetic for letting her do it all alone. Over the weekend, Uera and Huji go on a date to come up with a convincing story about how they met. and decided to get married. During the date, Huji feels that Uera isn't enjoying himself and feels sorry for being such a boring companion. However, as the date is about to end, Uera suddenly speaks up and offers to help her create their love story together. While riding the Ferris wheel, he asks if she likes Ferris wheels. Huji replies that she doesn't particularly like them but has something she wants to do. As Uera looks at her closely, he notices that she has a pleasant scent. Huji then takes out a pair of wedding rings and hands one to Uera. Although the rings aren't expensive, she believes they're necessary to make their wedding story more convincing. Uera begins to feel nervous, hesitating to put it on. He thinks that wearing the ring now would make it feel as though they're really getting married. While he's lost in thought, Huji calmly slips the ring onto her own finger without hesitation. She then asks Uera to come up with a proposal line for her to write down. Her idea for the story is that they were riding a Ferris wheel, and when it reached the top, Uera proposed to her. Uera thinks it's a romantic idea but struggles to come up with something to say. Huji reassures him that she can think of something herself if he can't, but Uera insists on doing it. As he prepares to say, "Will you marry me?" the words suddenly feel heavy. They're right there in his mind, but he can't get them out. To Uera, those words hold great meaning, and he feels they shouldn't be said lightly. He apologizes to Huji, admitting he can't think of the right thing to say at the moment but promises to come up with something later. Huji smiles and reassures him that it's okay, he can take all the time he needs. She promises to wait as long as it takes. If you come this far, please consider liking and subscribing for more videos like this. Thank